Hey, what is up? My name's Emily and welcome back to my channel. I've been doing a lot of reading related content recently and I haven't been giving my fellow authors and writers a lot of love, so I'm gonna do another author/writer video today. I want to talk today about whether or not traditional publishing or self-publishing might be for you. This is not going to be all-encompassing. I'm not going to pretend that I am a super duper expert on all of this, but this might give you just a little bit more info to determine whether or not you think that self-publishing or traditionally publishing is right for you and your book. So you have spent countless hours writing, outlining, creating these beautiful characters that you've created, crafting this story, and now you are ready to share it with the world. What do you do next? Well, there are a couple different options you can choose. I'm going to start with the traditional publishing route, as that is what most people think of when they think about publishing a book and becoming an author. After you finish your book and it is, as good as you can make it, I'm not saying that you've hired a professional editor, but you've done your work, you've done the job, it is as good as you think it can be. The next thing you're going to need to do is get an agent, a literary agent specifically. That means that you are going to write a query letter. Then you're going to want to start researching literary agents because not all agents represent all types of books. So you want an agent who will represent your book to the best that they can and will be someone who's interested in your book. So if you wrote a romantasy book, you wouldn't want to query your book to an agent that primarily does middle grade books. You can see what other books they've repped, and if those books are similar to what your book is and this person seems like someone you'd want to work with, then that's a good person to send your query to. You definitely don't want to send it to just any agent, as most of the times then they probably won't even look at it, and then you're just wasting time and energy sending it out to everyone. I also feel like we don't talk enough about how important it is to have an agent that you like and that you want to work with and that you will work well with. It's not just that getting an agent is going to be the ticket to, being a best-selling author. You need someone who's also going to advocate for you and your book. So that's just something to keep in the back of your mind. You don't want to just say yes to the first agent that you come across because they might not be the best fit for you and your story. Some authors also might not be taking queries at that time, so it's always good to check as well. The next thing you're going to want to do is write a query letter. Some people will say you should personalize it to every agent. Some people think you should just have a base query letter that you set out to everyone. That's going to depend on you. I personally think you should personalize it so that the agent knows that you've done your research and you've taken the time to make sure that this book and your letter really is for them. A query letter should contain several things. The first would be what genre your book is in, the word count, and the title. You also want to have the hook of your book in there as well, which is the thing that's going to make people want to read your book. It should only be, I think, 150 to 300 words. Then you're going to want to write a little bit about yourself. And as always, make sure that you thank them and give like a little closing statement. You're really trying to sell yourself and your book to this agent so that they take an interest in your manuscript so that you can send them part of your book for them to read, and hopefully they will want to take you on as one of their clients. I will make a note here, this is very important. You should never, ever, ever have to pay for a literary agent. They will never ask you for money if they're legit. The way agents work is that if you were to get a publishing deal, they take a certain percentage of the money you make from your publishing deal. It is never something that you pay them upfront to represent you or your book to publishing houses. It is also stated that you will never, ever, ever have to pay to be traditionally published. Ever. They pay you, not the other way around. There is such a thing as hybrid publishing. There's a lot of back and forth over whether or not hybrid publishing is like skeezy or not, because with hybrid publishing, you do pay upfront partial costs for it. However, it's kind of a gray area, so you're gonna have to leave it up to yourself. But then there is such a thing as vanity publishing, which is basically where you pay everything to a company and they will publish your book, but most of the time there's no marketing involved and your book probably isn't going to hit the bestsellers list. It also will take a long, long time, if ever, that you will receive any royalties or payment from these kinds of companies. So for the hook of your query letter, you should talk about your character, the main plot events, the things that are really going to be interesting to your readers, the things that they want to know about your book. What are the problems that they're going to face? What are their downfalls? What is going to make your book stand out? This should be short, sweet, concise, to the point. A lot of people also think that if you have self-published in the past that you can't query a book to agents, and that's not true. You just don't want to query a book that is already self-published. 9 out of 10 times, they don't really have an interest in it. But if it's a new work that hasn't been published yet, feel free. They don't care if you self-published your books beforehand. Also good to note is that some agents will have specific guidelines to how to query them or send them your submission. So just be smart and make sure you read everything about the agent. This is another reason why it's really important to not just send your query letter to any agent on a list. You want to make sure that you're doing your research and doing it properly, and that will give you the best chance of them reading your query letter in the first place. After you send in your query letter, you'll probably face a lot of rejections, but you might also get asked for a partial or full manuscript submission. They will tell you exactly what to send them, whether it's the first chapter, the first 3 pages, or the entire book, and they will hopefully read it, and then from there get back to you whether or not they feel like they would be a good fit for you or not. Something to prepare yourself for is that it is really hard to get an agent. It is like a very, very small percentage of people. That is not to say it doesn't happen, but it's just something to mentally prepare yourself for, because that first rejection hits like a rock in the chest. So it is really something to be mindful of and to be gentle with yourself. A lot of the times, agents are thinking about things that authors aren't even aware of. They're thinking about market trends. They're thinking about things that they want. Maybe they already have a book that's very similar to the one that you're trying to sell. They just can't take another one like that. Maybe they just have too many book submissions right now and they can't accept anymore. So just lots of things to think about. 9 out of 10 times, it's not you. But yes, that is that. You can also go the route, if you don't have a lot of luck finding an agent, you can find small presses that you can submit your book to yourself. So most big publishing houses, the agents know people there, they know editors, and that's how you get your book sold to a big publishing house. But there are small presses or indie presses that authors can actually directly submit their manuscripts to be published through them. This is not necessarily one of the big 5, but it is another way to get your book traditionally published where you don't really have to pay anything up front, and you will have your book in your hands published through an actual credited publisher. From there, after you get an agent or you submit it to a publishing house, if your book is accepted and they want to publish it, then it's kind of a waiting game. You'll work with an editor through them, they'll make your cover, they'll offer you an advance. This will be anywhere from a couple $100s to several $1,000s, depending on the contract, where your book kind of falls. Is it a series? Those kinds of things. And your agent, depending on how you negotiate your contract, these will all affect how much your advance is. And then that advance will be given out to you in small increments through the process of publishing it. So you won't just get, $15,000 up front. They'll kind of pace it out. So you'll get $2,000 when you reach this deadline, and then $2,000 when you reach this deadline, that sort of a thing. They will create your cover, you'll get it printed, all of those great things, and then finally the publishing day comes around and your book is published. Ta-da! That is the traditional publishing route. You will not normally, from my understanding, you don't see royalties from those books until after you buy out your advance, and that is normally very, very hard for authors to do unless your book is a huge bestseller right off the bat. Basically what that means is, let's say the publishing house gives you $10,000 in an advance. You have to sell enough books to buy out that $10,000 that they invested into your book for you to start earning royalties beyond that. So authors often don't see extra royalties coming in from their books for a while, if ever, from these big publishing houses. So that's kind of the traditional publishing route. There are a lot of pros to going this route. You don't invest any money yourself into the process. A lot of people see it as a more legitimate way of publishing a book. You get to work with editors and oftentimes big publishing houses, and it's a great way to get people to read your book. You'll see it in Barnes & Noble, you'll see it in all of the big stores. It's really exciting and it's really awesome. The cons would be that a lot of the times editors and traditional publishing houses will try and change aspects of your book to help fit the market or trends. Normally authors don't have any say at all, or they'll get a little bit of say, but they normally don't get to choose what their cover of their book is going to look like. And so a lot of that, personalization and stuff like that kind of gets taken away from the author at that point. It then becomes part of the marketing and the publishing house. It used to be that publishers did all of the marketing for the authors, and that was a really big pro to going trad, but these days more and more publishers are asking authors to also do the marketing for them on places like TikTok and Instagrams, who help sell and promote their books. So that is something that they still do, especially if you're one of the really big releases for that year. But oftentimes authors are still, put on themselves to sell their book on social media. So let's move over to self-publishing and how that maybe differs. Instead of going the route where you get an agent, self-publishing is all on the author. In some ways, you get out of it what you put into it, but sometimes you never will break even on your books. And so knowing that upfront, I think, is really important, is that, you know, you're going to invest this money and this time into a book. You may never make that money back. You might do really well and make your money back immediately, but it's kind of a pipe dream. You know, that's like best case scenario. And everything is up to you. So you as the author kind of become the publishing house, right? You become the business. So you have to do the marketing. You have to figure out how you're going to edit your book. You have to get the cover. Any sort of thing that comes with publishing this book is down to you. So you write the book. You've done it to the best of your ability. Where do you go from there? You can normally go to beta readers if you just want to get feedback on your story. I did a whole video about beta readers and ARC readers, so if you are interested in learning more about that, I will have it linked above and down below. But it's a great way to get initial feedback on your book, the story, what's working, what's not. Then you're going to want to find an editor. Some people will tell you that you can self-edit your books and you'll be fine. I would always go, for me personally, with the case that you need someone else looking at your work at least once, because you are not going to catch things that other people are going to catch. Whether that's spelling errors, plot holes, you know, as the author, you are not going to experience it as a reader ever. And sometimes having an editor to just go through and make it a better, concise, cleaner book is just what you really need. So there's different types of editing. There's developmental editing, there's proofreading, there's copy editing. There's lots of different things you can do. It's always great if you can get one editor to do all of it, but that's not always the case. Editing is going to cost differently depending on what kind of editing you're doing. Developmental editing tends to cost quite a bit more because you're talking about going deep into the story, seeing how the characters fit together, how the plot works, versus something like proofreading, you know, they're just looking for grammatical errors. Most editors do a pay by word kind of a basis, so it'll be like 0.015 cents per word or something like that. You can normally get a decent breakdown of what that's going to cost for you depending on the length of your book. There are tons of great editors out there. You just need to be careful and read reviews of these editors. You can go onto places like Reedsy. They have a Reedsy marketplace there, and there you can find professional editors that you can hire through them. They're all reputable. You can read reviews. Editors often will let you send them 1 or 2 pages of your book, and they will edit them and send them back to you so you can see what their editing style is like. Similar to finding an agent that vibes well with you, you really want to find an editor that also works really well with you. You're trusting them with your baby, your work. You want to find someone who's going to work with you and not against you. So after you've had your book edited and it is in the best possible way that it could be, you're going to need to format it so that you can publish it as an ebook or a print book. You're also going to want to figure out if you're going to buy your own ISBN or use a free one, depending on how you're going to distribute your book. In a perfect world, buying an ISBN is the best way to go. You need one for every ebook, audiobook, and print book. Depending on what country you live in is going to determine how much money it costs to get an ISBN. You're going to want to just find where they sell them in your country and go from there. The other thing you can do is if you publish on a platform like Draft to Digital or Amazon KDP, they can also provide you with the free ISBN. Now, a lot of people are very against this. However, for some people, depending on your financial situation, it's good for now. And in the end, if you want to change it to a personal ISBN after you have the money to buy them, you can also do that. And it's just a process, but you can do it. But for things like Draft to Digital and Amazon, if you use their free ISBN, they do not own your book. I feel like that gets kind of skewed around. They don't own your book at all. They own the ISBN. It's just to basically say that they published your book, but they don't own the rights to your story or your characters or anything like that. But it does mean that, like for Amazon, for example, if you use a free Amazon ISBN, you can't use that ISBN to upload it later on like Ingram Spark or something like that. But you could use a different ISBN and have a new edition of your book on Ingram Spark. It's kind of a confusing process. At the end of the day, you're just going to want to choose what's best for you. Most self-published authors, I feel like, end up going through KDP or something like Draft to Digital, And if you're not planning on selling on any other platform, you could just use their free ISBN and be okay. You're also going to have the ability to format your books on those platforms directly as well. For me and my books that I've self-published, this was totally a trial and error process of getting it to look exactly how I wanted it to. But I will say most of them are very user-friendly. You can also hire someone to format your book for you. You're probably going to pay anywhere from like $50 to $200 for that. But honestly, I feel like you can figure it out, and you could just forego that cost and figure out how to do it yourself. But that's up to the person and how much, they're willing to invest in the time they have to figure it out. The other really important thing is a cover, and you want a good cover that fits well in your genre, that fits in your age category, that conveys your book well, because at the end of the day, they say don't judge a book by its cover, but you're going to, and your readers are going to, and it's going to determine whether or not your book looks like it's a professional book or something that someone made on like Microsoft Paint. A good cover designer is going to cost anywhere from $200 to $1,500. You're going to want to go with an artist that you trust, that you like their work, and it's really important to get the commercial license for that art as well so that you can sell their art on your book. Most artists who are doing this professionally will already do that, but that is another reason why it costs a bit more, because you're paying for use of their art like on your book to sell to people basically. But it's really important in terms of like legal and copyright use that you have that. The cover next to the editing are probably the two most important and also the most expensive parts of getting your book out there. But once you've done all of that, you can have it up on the platform literally within a day, ready to sell. Which is really, really cool. There's not a really long, lengthy waiting process like there is in traditional publishing. After a publishing house gets their hands on your book, you can wait anywhere from like 6 months to 2 years to have your book published. So if you are an author who writes a lot and you want to have 3 or 4 books, even more, published in 1 year, you could do that through self-publishing. It allows for writers to get more work out there and to get paid for more work. And a lot of authors are very, very successful this way. Most of the time, you will not see self-published books in big box stores, especially if you only publish through Amazon, as most stores would never put a Amazon published book in their store. But if you were to go through something like Ingram Spark or Draft to Digital, you would be able to have stores put your book on their shelves. They will not just automatically do this though. You have to form a relationship with them or have them order your books to see if they will sell them. Also sells self-published books on consignment. So there's lots of different things that you can do and ways that you can go about it. But unlike traditional publishing, self-published books, you're not going to find them in like the Target book section just randomly. But that does not mean that they will not be successful. So the big downsides to self-publishing is that you do all the costs up front, the cover art, the editing, all of that all comes from you. It is all on the author to figure out how to do that. You don't really have someone guiding you through the process. You don't have someone looking over your shoulder and figuring out what's best for you. So you really have to be your biggest advocate, and you have to be willing to work through all of the hard parts that come with the actual publishing process as the writer. But the upsides are that you have complete and total creative freedom with your work. You can design the cover yourself. You can hire someone to do it and make it look exactly the way you want. You get to edit your book. There isn't going to be someone telling you like, hey, you need to cut this character or this scene. Like, you can make it exactly how you want it. And the other nice thing is that anyone can really self-publish these days. There are no limits to really what you can self-publish, which is really cool. And like, if you're someone who just wants your book out to your close friends and family, it's a great option. Obviously, if you're someone who wants to have like a movie deal or, be on the bestseller list, traditional publishing is probably the most direct way to do that. There have been self-published books that then get picked up by traditional publishers like The Martian or Can't Spell Treason Without T. Legends and Lattes, I think, was also self-published. Like, there's lots and lots and lots of books that have been self-published that have then been picked up. But obviously, that is like the few and far between. But never say never. The self-publishing timeline can also be much shorter. So if you're someone who, wants to push out a book in 5 months, you could do that, which can be a really big plus for some people. So yeah, that is just a very basic, bland overview of the differences of like the processes of self-publishing or traditionally publishing. I hope that if you are somewhere in between and you're trying to decide which way you want your book to go, I hope this helps to clarify it for you. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know down below. I'd love to chat with you about it. Let me know if I missed anything. Like I said, I'm not going to pretend that I am like a know-it-all about the publishing industry or something like that. This is all just information that I've gathered from my own research and listening to other fellow authors. As always, thank you so much for watching. It was so great to see you here. If you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, please be sure to like it and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out a lot. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I cannot wait to see you in the next one.